Good morning. Miley's out today, so you're stuck with me because we all know how shy I am. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 9:31. We do have a quorum here today, and we'll go ahead and start with introductions. I'm Jolene Hausman, Executive Director of the Fountain Valley Senior Center, as well as the second Vice Chair of the MCC.
Sharon Brown.
Oh, and please remember to hit your button and say your name before you talk.
Sharon Brown, City of Fountain.
Waukesha Green, Colorado Springs, and Vita.
Courtney Stone, alternate for the Independence Center.
Ted Schweitzer, City of Cope Creek.
Diana Van Auken, Transportation Manager, Teller Senior Coalition.
Victoria Solser, Transportation Manager, Silver Key.
David Prudhomme, Special Kids, Special Families.
John Carroll, Special Kids, Special Families.
Jeremy Trujillo, Special Kids, Special Families.
Karen Teal, Drive Smart, Colorado.
Terry Cassidy, Fitness to Drive with Health Promotion Partners.
Joe Urban, Area Agency on Aging.
Brian Champion, Mountain Metro.
Dick Hyde, Community Intersections.
Joe Vaccaro, Community at Large.
So if we'd like to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Sharon.
Any objections? And any public comments not on the agenda? Okay. So the subcommittee met for the suggested changes to the bylaws, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the bylaws before, but it was like a novel with about A through M. So Miley, Ted, Brian, and myself got together in beautiful Cripple Creek. We went to Ted, and so we revised them to only have 5 bylaws for this committee and put them also in order of importance. So they are now to advise and recommend to the PPACG Board of Directors and staff on current and emerging issues, goals, and plans for public and human services transportation in the Pikes Peak region, information sharing related to transportation issues, grants, best practices, education, advocacy to provide maximum benefit to the Pikes Peak region, be the experts on transportation issues and best practices, provide information, educational opportunities, training, and tools so that transportation may be integrated into all aspects of the community, maintain and promote a directory of services offered by members for the targeted demographic groups. Do we have any input on the suggested new bylaws?
I might just frame it just a hair, and I think a lot of people have already heard this before, but I'll repeat it. When our new transportation director at the PPACG came on board, as well as our new director, they kind of looked at that list. I think there were 14 components to this responsibility section of the bylaws, and they looked at that and said, you know, a lot of those really don't traditionally fall under an LCC's responsibilities. So a lot of them fall with Metro, a lot of them fall actually with other agencies. So they looked at those and said, here's the ones that I think are probably most applicable to this particular LCC, and it sounds like the committee kind of came pretty close to that, felt that was the major responsibilities. And we need to use the expertise of this group to be able to do 5 things good instead of 14 things not very good.
So if this MCC committee is in agreement, we would need to vote on the bylaws, and then Miley would present it to the PPACG board to have them approved overall. Would anyone a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the new bylaws. Dick Hyde, a motion to approve the new bylaws.
Sharon Brown, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so motion carried.
Thank you, folks, for doing that work. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Before we move on to the next one, though, with the bylaw revisions, you'll notice that E is to maintain and promote a directory of services offered by members. This pamphlet was put together by PPACG in the past. And so what Miley would like as well is maybe something like this again in the future. So if you can review it, and then we'll work with Miley on sending out an email to get updated information on this, because this is very outdated. But something similar that we can have at all our agencies and here, so that the community knows who to call for what needs that they have, and gives it to them at their fingertips. No. No, that's something else too. This never made it on the agenda. I just know, like Miley wanted it to go out. Okay, so the next thing is to establish the calendar of organizations. What we'd like to do is start having, an organization present once a month, and we passed this around last meeting, and all the super extroverts in here signed up. So now there's time for all of you to sign up still, with lots of space. So please sign your agency up for one day to present what your agency does in regards to mobility in the Pikes Peak region. Fountain's covered under us, so you're good. And now we'll just take an opportunity to share any information, coordination, or training opportunities that you may know about coming up. I really want to thank Ted for suggesting that state meeting where everybody knew Ted. But I wouldn't have went to that meeting without this last meeting, so thank you. And I'm going to Transit 101 on Friday as well. And it's the last Transit 101 class being offered. So if you haven't gone, I recommend signing up for it. Anyone else want to share?
How do you make additions or corrections to this thing?
I think we're going to have to do it via email. Like, can we send you the updates? I don't know who's going to be responsible for it yet. So why don't we wait for Miley to come back at the next meeting, but just start thinking about what updates you'd like to see.
Mine was easy to check. There's nothing there.
Okay.
And this is a fairly old document.
Yes.
So it may be that this group decides to just start from scratch again.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, Ted Schweitzer, there's a training opportunity tomorrow. I know it's short fused, but it came out. It's for ADA lift maintenance. It's down in Los Animas. Michelle's putting it on down there. I think they're bringing in one of the reps from Brown Mobility to do that. And then for those that aren't aware, there's a CASTA conference, excuse me, the last week of May. There's some emails floating around. The rates are going to increase on that. So if people are interested in attending that conference, I highly encourage you to register. You can go to the CASTA website, and it has all the details and information in the agenda.
The rates go up tomorrow.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, if you want to save money.
Where is the conference, the CASTA conference this year?
It's going to be in Denver.
Denver?
Yeah, downtown Denver.
Nothing exotic or anything?
No, nothing fun. Kind of boring. Well, it's better than what we've had Greeley, Fort Collins. So. Those are all great places, too.
Nice.
Ted, for those of us who aren't aware, what is CASTA?
Colorado Association of Transit Agencies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Karen with DriveSmart, and I just want to let you guys know we are going to have I'm going to pass out a save the date. Tuesday, July 9th, there's going to be a CarFit technician training. If you have people within your organization who would like to learn about CarFit, which is basically fitting, right now we're focused on the older driver, but it actually is for everyone, fitting a person comfortably into their vehicle so that they take the best advantage of all their safety gear that's there. These will be available. So save the date, July 9th. I'll go ahead and pass those out. And then we also received recently a Stay Off the Tracks training on a thumb drive, and I have two. So if you have drivers that cross train tracks regularly, or busy train tracks regularly, work around rural areas where there's a lot of trains coming through. I have 2 available right now. And then you can also go to stayofthetracks.org and get the training from them as well. So these are available to anybody who'd like them today. Absolutely.
Oh, she's coming.
So some of you guys know me already. I'm Melissa, and I retired about 3 months ago now with the Area Agency on Aging. And so we are celebrating our Yellow Book. The Yellow Book is coming out and it's here. How many of you know what the Yellow Book is?
There will be cases sitting there. We neglected to get them out when you came in, so there will be cases when you go out.
And for those of you who don't know, it has been in
Jolene, I'd like to hand out our Mountain Metro Transit newsletter. There's just a couple of articles I'd like to highlight. We have released our spring service changes for our fixed route system. There's some more information on the I-25 GAP project. Mountain Metro is offering free fixed route service to active U.S. military in recognition of Military Appreciation Month. We have our Summer Hall Pass program. It's for kids 6 to 18 for $25. They get unlimited use of the fixed route system for June, July, and August. And then there's some updates about some new buses that we've put into service and our solar light installation.
Did you guys get some battery operated buses this month? Did they come in?
No, not yet.
I heard them on the news this morning.
Yeah, I think we're looking to put 3 into service.
Okay.
Yeah, as a test. Thank you.
Okay. And the sign-in sheet is also going around, so please make sure you sign in before you leave. Miley would like you guys to start thinking about items for the future MCC meetings. The first one is we'd like to plan a public event in 2019 to showcase MCC and transportation options. And the thought is kind of like a transportation fair where we can bring our buses and bring the community to our buses and see and make it more real and usable to them. So with all of us involved. And then the second one is discuss the possibility of moving meeting locations once a quarter with call-in options so that we're not always meeting here, but we also include our regional partners as well.
I might just make a comment. I think that's a tremendous idea. We do that with the Regional Advisory Council. We're going to be in Fountain on Thursday. We're going to be up in Cripple Creek in 2 or 3 months. And it's a huge asset to the credibility of this group, as well as it's a great educational tool for the community.
Any other comments? This is a really quick meeting. I think we all have our grants due to PPACG tomorrow, so we're waiting to get out of here. So we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:46. Oh.
Folks, DriveSmart hosts the Older Driver Coalition meeting monthly, and we have a meeting coming up on May 2nd at 2:30 at Gold Hill Police Department. Anyone who deals with older drivers, older driver transportation, older driver awareness is very, very welcome to attend at any time. And we do have the meeting. It does start promptly at 2:30, and it is going to be May 2nd. So anybody who'd like to attend is very welcome to do so. Love to see you guys there and have your input.
I just wanted to kind of bring up a point of discussion a little bit for today and potentially for the future, but how many of the folks around the table were around when we had our PPACG mobility manager? It's been 3 or 4 years. Most recent was Angel Bond, I think. And I just sort of wanted to touch base with the group as we're talking through sort of purpose and outline of our roles, and just see if there was interest in the MCC about supporting a position like that in the future, whether it's in this round of funding or looking kind of forward. But one of the things that I noticed with just having a specific person assigned to the role of coordinating specialized transportation, that it seemed like it was an effective use of funding, at least from my perspective. Wow.
Right?
Yellow books for everyone. We're throwing resources at each other. So there's not necessarily a specific ask, but more of just something to process or potentially put forward. We have our mobility coordinator from the MMT side, I think when there was a regional focus, it definitely sort of broadened outside of just the specific public transportation arena and brought in the specialized role a little bit more specifically as well. So it's just something that I've been processing. I think I just remember seeing a lot of forward growth with this body in particular, but also just around coordination of services when Angel was around, or when that role existed. But I'm also totally open to hearing other thoughts around that. Just something I wanted to throw out in the context of this discussion, I think. Well, she went to Boulder after the position was not funded for a second year, yeah. So she, yes. Gotcha.
So that application process is out right now, and it closes in mid-May. And sometime, if we were to apply, it would be a direct apply to CDOT. And sometimes they go for a 2-year cycle. So if we miss this one, it could be 2 years out. So it's something that I think we need to decide.
Well, and Joe, is there any interest in the PPACG side around mobility management at that level? It's just something to kind of...
Quite frankly, we haven't talked about it very much. I know that our strategic plan, being the larger strategic plan of the PPACG, has a component in there for regional collaboration of transportation needs, and we haven't defined what that means. The general thinking is that we try to find a way to. I mean, it's right here is what it is. You folks are in the room. We've got, we'd like to even bring in Park, if that's possible, into that discussion, but have a discussion that's broader than the city of Colorado Springs. So we have not gotten past that particular component. But I'm happy to, see if we can further define what our role is. I know there's a lot, what Brian's doing over at the city, the efforts of the call center, all that wraps together, and it's over the course of the last few years, it's been a little disjointed, I think.
Well, and it's just hard when you don't have a specific person assigned to that. I mean, it's just more work for the staff you currently have when a role goes away that did exist, even if it was short-term. So I understand, it's hard when you don't have somebody sort of championing that purpose to do it from a very regional perspective, because that's a very broad scope to have to take.
And the angle that we take is sometimes even a little bit different than the AAA. And matter of fact, you're probably going to see some of the transportation folks we are going to rotate, myself and the transportation folks are going to start rotating some of these meetings, just because they play kind of a particular role, particularly with the 2045 plan coming up for review. That's going to be a big part of what goes on. But the effort in general is to get a regional collaboration. How we do that has not been defined, so I'm happy to kind of pursue what our angle is. The other thing that's kind of important is that the PPACG plan came from PPACG board members, which are predominantly elected officials who are not sitting in bus seats or working on buses on a daily basis. So they may have a different perspective. They have what they hear from their constituents that come to them.
So this position actually came up when we were talking about the bylaws and responsibilities of the committee as well. And Ted had said it closes in May.
I want to say May 13th. Does that sound right? For the admin and operating and mobility management, it's mid-May.
Yeah. So is that something maybe PPACG would be willing to apply for?
We can certainly look at it. You know, I sat in this room and I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name that just left CDOT. That came down and spoke to us when they said they weren't going to have any more mobility managers. No, it wasn't Rocky. It was anyhow. He recently retired or moved, and so that kind of played into that picture that you were talking about with Angel initially. She said, you know, we're phasing out that particular type of operation, and obviously that didn't happen. Thank goodness. I mean, I think it's a very critical component to have. So I'm happy to find out more and apparently work very quickly in finding that out.
Joe, we can help as well. Teller's willing to help. Maura Moon runs that program now at the CDOT level, and I think the person you were thinking about was Robin Dreesen. No? Yeah. But anyway, there's been a redirect at the CDOT level where there's additional funding for this type of projects. So there is a push there for it.
Well, and I would be interested in the position as well for advocating for specialized transportation, but not only the funding for it, but I think like the governmental entities need better education on the purpose of specialized transportation and the need for it, because I think there's a lot of policies being done in our region that are not benefiting our clients on why and when they're using it.
Maybe within that frame, Jill, are there any updates with generally strategic plan and sort of where that stands, or how we can support that moving forward in addition?
Sure. It was released 2.5, 3 months ago, I believe, the PPACG strategic plan, and kind of incorporated as part of that would be the Area Agency on Aging 4-year plan, which happens every 4 years, amazingly. It was just released. We just got that approved. Actually, we haven't even got it approved. We submitted it, and we should receive approval in the next couple weeks or so. Those two kind of partner together, but they're both on our website if you have trouble sleeping. And fairly detailed. And I'm glad you bring those up, Courtney, because we should have mentioned that earlier on. They're both very important documents. They're derived in two completely different ways. The PPACG strategic plan is, as I said, that's elected officials, and they're putting out what they're hearing on a day in and day out basis. And then the area agency has a little bit more structured format, but we hear sometimes different things because we're talking to a different constituent group. So I'd encourage everybody to take a quick look at those. They're pretty easy read, actually. I didn't mean to diss them. But they do have very important components, and we hear constantly from folks about transportation. We hear housing, transportation, and home care are by far the three biggest things that we hear about on a day-to-day basis, and transportation probably dwarfs all the others, to tell you the truth.
And I feel like I hear a lot with elected officials in those roles about sort of perceived waste of resources with potential lack of coordination, that, you know, they feel like we should be able to do more with what we have. And everybody hears that, but it's kind of nice when you have a person assigned to say, like, yeah, they're focused specifically on that, and we are working collectively towards being as efficient and also wonderful to people as possible.
And I would I've heard some of that too, and I would push back a little bit on that because I think the transit agencies that we have and the transportation groups that we've got in this town are doing an incredible job.
I
of
believe
what do.
they are. It's kind of just having that spokesperson for like, see, this is everything we're doing, and we're doing it incredibly well, especially across the region.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. We base a lot of those opinions on perceptions rather than reality at times.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Well, and a face-to-face advocate would be a really strong component of getting that information directly to them.
Right, and having a consistent face and sort of that consistent message is more helpful than you would imagine sometimes.
Hey, Joe, what did happen with that position? Why did it go away?
The history of that position, boy. I can give you the Reader's Digest version. We and I wish I could remember the gentleman's name that came down from CDOT. That told us that was about the time Angel made that move on him for personal reasons. It had nothing to do with the position. She loved what she was doing, and we interviewed. I believe. Is anybody else in this room involved in this process? We interviewed for about 2 or 3 months. Rob was our director at that point, and did not really care for any of the people that were interviewed, and at that point just kind of made the decision that maybe this is something that the Council of Governments didn't need to be in, particularly given the information we got that those positions were probably not going to be available in the future. And so the PPACG had put in, I think, close to $100,000 of their own money, member money, organization money, to support that position. And the decision was made at that point to not pursue replacing that position. And that's, I think, and then it evolved that they were indeed funding positions, and I think that's when Metro elected to pick up the ball and run with it.
Well, if you'd like any last-minute writing support or letters of support or anything along those lines, I mean, I think there's, if last-ditch effort, but might not hurt.
Okay. I will pursue it.
Just remember, it's a bigger window than we had for our grants.
Thank you. No. That's funny. You know, on that note, I should mention that our RFP cycle is open right now. If you have any interest whatsoever and have ever had an interest in your life in getting funding through the Older Americans Act, now is the time to do it. We have more funding available to us than we've had in quite some time. There's a couple reasons for that, and I think some of you have kind of followed it. Governor Hickenlooper was pretty generous to older Coloradans. It's certainly not the federal government. I'll start with that. They have done nothing to help us. Governor Hickenlooper was very generous, and then in addition to that, we had kind of a windfall from the homestead exemption tax. I don't know if anybody follows that. The state has to, I'll give you the real short version, the state has to budget every year for all of the homestead exemption money that the counties lose because they exempt seniors from half their taxes. When they over budget and have money left over that's not refunded to the counties, then that goes into the Older Coloradans Fund. I think a lot of people remember that happened about 2 years ago, and we got, locally, I think we got about $170,000 out of that pot. Well, this time it was a much bigger mistake. They over budgeted close to $15 million. So they, the state has, you can't just shove $15 million on people and have them spend it appropriately. So the state has elected to divide that up into five chunks, of $3 million each for the next 5 years. So that kind of gets added on to what we had before. So the next, in addition to that, services you don't just turn on, Waukesha doesn't say, hey, we're going to triple our bus routes tomorrow. So services take a long time to ramp up, and this is broad. I mean, it covers dining services, virtually anything. State money is very flexible to us, so we're kind of allowed to use it whatever we think is the most appropriate way. So for the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to be in pretty good shape, assuming there's not a significant economic downturn and they steal that money back. We still have to get spending authority every year on that money. So it's there, it's sitting in the bank, but we're not allowed to use it until they say we can use it.
And I do have to say, as much as I tease him about the window, I've applied for a million grants and then been on the other side of it as well. Your guys' process is the best that I've seen. Like, that database is so nice to use, so thank you.
The other component that I wanted to mention, because it's really important, is we're not allowed to do midstream funding. So we do RFPs on an annual basis, which is great, and a lot of people don't do that. But if you decide that you want to do a service in January and the funding cycle starts in July, you got to wait till the following July. We can always add money to an existing component. We just can't give money to somebody that wasn't in the original cycle.
Anything else? Okay, if you do that state, I'll also help as well, any help you need. Then for real this time, we'll adjourn at 10:03.